It's time to get into the Wfxr Sports Fastlane.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope your day is wonderful and blessed. I'm Jermaine, Ferrell, and like butter, let's go on a roll, baby, with the Wfxr Sports Fastlane on WFXRTV.com. Each and every week, I'm joined by the driver of the Wfxr Sports race car. That's our racing insider, Sammy Eanes. It's Sammy. How are you doing today? Because it's Martinsville week, baby.
We got a home game. It's Martinsville week. How can you not be in a good mood? Can't wait to break it all down with you here in the fast lane.
You know, it's neat. Like I said, we had Bristol a couple weeks ago. Of course, we were off last week. We got Martinsville this week, and then we go to Richmond. So they kind of keep everything on that, you know, I-81, Highway 64, 220 corridor. It's great.
Definitely is. Heart of the sport right here, Virginia, Carolinas area. You can't beat it.
Good stuff. Well, guess what? We're going to talk about Bristol now. Of course, Joey Logano, he made history in Bristol nearly 2 weekends ago, leading the final 61 laps in the face of a determined charge by Chesterfield native Danny Hamlin. Logano won the rain-delayed Food City dirt race in overtime at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Now, it was the first dirt track race for the NASCAR Cup Series since 1970, but there won't be that long of a gap in the future given. Now, Bristol Motor Speedway executive and general manager Jerry Caldwell announced during the race that NASCAR will return to the Bristol Dirt in 2022, next year if you keep score at home. Now, Logano grabbed the lead from Daniel Suarez on lap 193 of the scheduled 250 laps, and he held it the rest of the way through a caution for the second stage break and a late yellow that sent the race 3 laps beyond the prescribed distance. And, of course, on the final restart of lap 252, Logano pulled away as Hamlin tried and failed to find grip in the outside lane and fell to third behind runner-up Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Logano winning margin over Stenhouse was about a half a second. Now, Logano is the 7th consecutive different winner in 7 races this season. Suarez held 4th place, followed by Ryan Newman, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones, and reigning series champion Chase Elliott in the top 10.
You know, obviously a exciting race. You know, a lot of different things happening throughout it. But, you know, I think the biggest thing was just being methodical throughout the race, you know, being able to maintain the lead and race Denny there at the end was nuts. That's the thing with this dirt racing, man. You just don't know what you're going to have next, and you're forced to figure something out quickly.
Wow. I tell you what, Sammy, how crazy is it? We've had 7 races, 7 different winners, the dirt track, of course, the wild card, but Joey Logano pulling it out. And it was a unique race. I mean, I thought the biggest thing I saw, or lack thereof of seeing, just the dust and the dirt flying up. It seems like when you're racing in dirt, Sammy, you have to find that right balance. You don't want the track to be too muddy, but on the flip side, you don't want it too dry. You have the dust. Just your overall impression about the race in general, though.
Sure, I thought the race was a spectacle in one word. Some people loved it. Some people didn't like it. I think at the end of the day, you have to give NASCAR kudos for 2 things. First of all, for trying something new. You know, they went out there, not only did a dirt race, but they put dirt over the surface of one of the most storied tracks in NASCAR. It was completely unprecedented, and I think NASCAR deserves a lot of credit for at least trying that and trying something different. I also think they deserve a ton of credit for getting that track ready to race 2 races on Monday. It was an absolute monsoon in Bristol over the weekend. Obviously, no one saw that coming. I was getting texts from NASCAR personnel, you know, showing the infield that literally looked like a mud river. So the fact that they got that track back ready and in such great shape to run 2 races on Monday is really a testament to the NASCAR personnel there on site, prepping the track and making sure it's ready to roll. And then in terms of the actual on-track action, Joey Logano completely shattered the narrative heading into the race. Everyone thought that the dirt guys, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Reddick, the Dillon brothers, one of those guys would dominate and win this race. Daniel Suarez had a fantastic run, but then Joey Logano, in what I believe was just his 4th ever dirt race, comes away with a victory. I thought it was uniquely entertaining. There's certainly some key takeaways that I think NASCAR can take from this race and put into next year's Bristol event or any other dirt tracks that they may run, especially if they're doing what they did here and transforming a paved track into a dirt track, limiting the dust as you talked about. Now, does that mean bringing in different dirt? Does that mean running at night? Does that mean longer breaks to make sure the track is in a good spot? We'll see. I think all of those are potential options. And then also, what can they do to get a second groove going? You mentioned Denny trying to go to the outside, and it just wasn't there. This was a one groove race. What can they do to make it where the racing is a little more side by side, and where if you get out of that single file line, you don't just get shuffled back?
Yeah, Sammy, it just seems like when you look at that track, it seems like it was the middle part of the track. That groove in the middle was really the sweet spot on the track. But one thing you did mention, I think some of the drivers did mention this, that it probably would help to race at night, because when you're racing during the daytime and you have the dust and everything flying up, as weird as this may sound, you're going to have lights, but it's not the same. When that sunlight's coming in and you have the shadows and all that, that's a whole different thing. So maybe they make the dirt race a night race.
And more importantly, when you have the sunlight, it dries out the dirt. So inherently at night, you, in theory, would have less dirt. Now, then you get into the whole situation of, will Bristol want to have 2 night races? There's so much mystique around the Bristol night race, especially now that it's in the playoffs. I don't know for sure that Bristol would want to have 2 night events, but I think everything will be on the table for NASCAR going into 2022 to make sure that this event is a success.
It's awesome stuff. Well, guess what? Before we talk about all the festivities connected with the race weekend at Martinsville Speedway, I caught up with track president Clay Campbell to talk about the fun of the upcoming week.
Last year was very different than anything we've ever gone through before, but this year we've got fans coming back in here. We've got 3 nights of racing that fans will be here to see.
Those 3 nights include the modified cars racing on Thursday, the Xfinity Series on Friday, and Saturday night the Cup Series cars take center stage. Fans will get their chance to camp out at the campgrounds leading up to the race. Martinsville Speedway President Clay Campbell says things will be a little different on when the campers can roll in to the campgrounds.
Usually we're in on the weekend before, but they come in Thursday of this week. But things are starting to pick up. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got last-minute touch-ups to do. The broadcast crew will be rolling in here, setting up. It's just a little city right now with a very small population that just keeps growing by the day.
With the state attendance mandates allowing 30% capacity at the Speedway, which will allow around 19,000 fans each night, Campbell says the track is doing everything possible to keep the fans and participants safe.
And we take that very seriously. We don't take it lightly. We know that being allowed, up to 30%, which we're not quite there, but we take a lot of responsibility in bringing that many people back in here. We know it's the biggest event in the Commonwealth of Virginia since the restrictions were lifted somewhat. So I think we're ready. Well, I know we're ready. I think the fans won't notice a great deal of difference in what they've experienced in the past, other than the social distancing and the mask and things of that nature. But the race itself is going to be awesome. And I think people just want to get out and get back to the track.
Indeed, get back to the track. That's the fun thing. Sammy, I just got to ask you, first of all, we're going to get really into the meat of the race in just a couple of minutes, but Clay Campbell, the family, the legacy that they've had with that track, one of the only original track still in the sport of NASCAR, the Cup Series, and just your thoughts and feelings about Clay Campbell. You're a Martinsville guy, born and raised there. You've probably gone to that track more times than I'll ever go. But just when you think of Martinsville Speedway, you think of Clay Campbell right now.
You sure do. And Clay is such a great asset and ambassador to not only NASCAR, but to Southwest Virginia and that entire area. The couple things that stick out to me about Clay is, first of all, he's a very personable individual. You can tell how excited he is to have people come out to the track, which I think, helps the overall experience there at NASCAR. And then also, Clay doesn't rest on his laurels. He could easily step back and say, hey, my granddad was H. Clay Earls. He founded this track. He's always looking to improve Martinsville, make it a better experience for drivers, make it a better experience for fans. And he just got an elevated role this week in NASCAR, promoted to a VP role over the tracks in the Mid-Atlantic region that NASCAR owns, so Darlington and Richmond, which have outstanding leadership already. But I think having input from someone like Clay is only going to make those facilities better.
Wow, you broke some news. I did not know that. So Clay is now a VP, adding on to the other time. I did not know that.
Indeed, yeah. Breaking news right here on the Fastlane. Yeah, they put that out. NASCAR released a couple of promotions of folks, including Julie Giese, who we talked about here a few weeks ago. I believe that was on Tuesday that they put that news out, and included in that was that Clay will be vice president over the Mid-Atlantic region for the NASCAR-owned tracks.
That is awesome news. Congratulations, Sammy. Breaking it. I mean, see, that's why you're the insider. When we have the WFXR Sports Racing, see, we were a little bit behind, but then it's like you took off. You know, you got in that right groove, and now we're leading right now. I mean, we were always leading. We fell back a little bit because we had to go into the pits a little bit, but you gave us the lead back. That's what you call driving right there, son. So thank you for that. Great job. Well, guess what? 23-year-old Cole Custer, one of the young lions in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, back in 2014, at the age of 16, he was the youngest NASCAR Camping World Truck Series winner. Last year, he was the NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year in winning a race in his rookie season. Recently, I talked to him about how he's handled success at a young age and his thoughts about racing at Martinsville Speedway this weekend.
It hasn't been huge for me. I guess I don't want to speak. You know, I don't know what other people think of me, but for me, I've always been the quieter guy for the most part. So I haven't been too, trying to broadcast myself at times or anything. But it's one of those things where you just try and make yourself better every single time on the track, and you try and figure out ways. There's always something you can do better. So you just have to remind yourself of that.
Dad, so you got your first start really in the big time of racing at the Truck Series was at Martinsville back in 2014. Take me back to that experience. I mean, your first race at the major level, obviously the three levels, Xfinity, Cup, and Truck, and you start off in Martinsville.
Yeah, I remember my first actually 2 truck races at Martinsville. It was something that I was really fast, but I could not figure out how to race there and keep my truck in one piece till the end of the race. You're racing in such tight quarters and everybody's beating and banging. It's hard to know, when you're supposed to be aggressive and when you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to kind of take care of your car. So it was one of those things I just had to figure out kind of the pace of the race.
What's the biggest thing you're looking forward to racing at Martinsville coming up?
For me, it's just the challenge of it. It's one of those tracks that when you're out there by yourself, you have to finesse it around the racetrack. It takes a lot of rhythm. But then also, once you get out there with 39 other cars, it becomes a physical race. So it's balancing those two things of finesse and beating and banging. It's one of the toughest tracks on the schedule.
Indeed, Martinsville, it's you get an education racing there. We'll talk about that in a second. It's kind of like I've had a lot of C's here. Clay Campbell and then Cole Custer, like my report card, a lot of C's. High C, vitamin C, all the C's. That's what we have right then and there. And one other side note about Cole Custer. Of course, he races for Stewart House Racing. Cole's dad, Joe, is the president of Stewart House Racing. So talk about a family affair. And I tell you one thing, Cole Custer, his name, doesn't it feel like it's a NASCAR name, Cole Custer, like Days of Thunder or Talladega Nights? Cole Custer. I love that name. I said it last year during Fastlane. It's so cool. But, Sammy, your thoughts about Cole Custer? He is one of the young lions, and I see him having a great career. If you can do it in all the levels at such a young age, I mean, he's one to watch there.
This episode of Fastlane is definitely brought to you by the letter C. That is for sure. Cole Custer is, like you said, he's a young lion in the sport. He came in with a lot of hype. He had back-to-back second place finishes in the Xfinity Series in 18 and 19. And then he backed that up. He had 7 top 10 finishes last year. He won at Kentucky. He won the Rookie of the Year. Now, look, this year, he's having a sophomore slump. His highest finish was 11th at Daytona. He's got 4 finishes of 20th or worse through 7 races. And quite honestly, Martinsville is not exactly his best track, so I don't know that he'll kind of break that trend this weekend down at the Paperclip. But it's still very early in his career. He's 23, 24 years old. He has a ton of potential, a ton of promise, and I certainly expect big things for Cole Custer in the future.
I tell you, he is cool. And then his story is fascinating because his wife, he raced against her, in the earlier series. So I was looking up that story and I saw that story. It was Dale Jarrett interviewed them together and how she was a racer. And then obviously he took the reins of that. So how they met was so neat because she said, I didn't like them that much in the beginning. So isn't that how, sometimes, there's a thin line between love and hate, and it's great. They're a beautiful and awesome couple there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a good love story. Yeah, you don't always get along at the beginning, but you have the common bond of racing, and there you go. Good power couple, young power couple in NASCAR.
Good deal. And she's really the only, when you bring your work home, she understands everything he's gone through, so that's a neat thing. Well, guess what, folks? The Modifieds, yes, they returned to Martinsville after an 11-year absence tonight at 8 for the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 200. It is also the season opener for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. Now, Martinsville hosted a modified race in NASCAR's inaugural season on July 4th, 1948. The mods raced off and on at Martinsville from 1960 through 2010. Cup Series driver and 2013 Wheel and Tour champ Ryan Preece won last weekend at South Boston Speedway, and he's excited about getting back inside a modified car to race tonight.
It'd be nice to go there tomorrow and hopefully dominate the race and win. I feel like we got a great race car and obviously a little bit of momentum on our side right now. So yeah, we'll see.
And that's going to be a neat thing. And getting back to you, Sammy, we could bring you up real quick. I guess I got to ask you this. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of, I believe Ryan Newman is racing in tonight's modified race. So a lot of the Cup Series drivers, that's grassroots for them. They love racing in the mods. I did mention earlier that Preece, he raced at South Boston, which he even thinks with their setup of their two pit areas, how about having a Cup race at South Boston? Maybe that could happen. I mean, they're going to other places. Why not try a track like that? But obviously, it's kind of neat to see what Ryan Preece is doing because he gives a lot of credit to those mods.
And modified racing is really having a little bit of a renaissance right now. People are very engaged with modified racing. Wheel and Modified Tour, as you said, season kicking off tonight in Martinsville. The ability to watch that. NASCAR has a streaming product called Track Pass now that has Wheel and Modified Tour races where fans can watch. And then some of these smaller series that are developing, like the Smart Series, which did race at South Boston last weekend, they are growing in prominence. NASCAR Hall of Famer, the legendary Bobby Labonte, 2000 Cup Series champion, is racing the Smart Tour full-time this year. They're coming back to this area in the fall. I believe it's October 2nd. They race at Motor Mile Speedway, so mark your calendar for that if you like mod racing and you want to see a legend like Bobby Labonte race. And as you said, with Preece and Newman and the folks racing tonight, this is really a throwback to their roots, to the grassroots of the sport. And I think the more NASCAR can take the Cup Series and tie it back to that grassroots racing, the better.
And not only that, the key, and let's don't get lost in some of this, getting laps at Martinsville is a help because it's an education. Takes a long time to master racing at Martinsville. The greats have done it, but early on, it can be a little bit intimidating, so we'll see that. Well, anyway, speaking of Martinsville Speedway is the longest continuously running track on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. The only current active track that was a part of the inaugural NASCAR Cup Series season in 1949. Martinsville Speedway was originally a dirt track, and the facility hosted 12 NASCAR Cup Series races on then dirt surface before paving the track in the summer of 1955. Between the track's 2 Cup races of that season, in total, there have been 144 NASCAR Cup Series races at Martinsville Speedway, 1 in the inaugural year in 1949 and 2 races per year since 1950. The first 500-lap event at Martinsville Speedway was in 1956, and the concrete corners were added atop the asphalt in 1976. The 144 NASCAR Cup Series races at Martinsville Speedway are the second most series events run at a facility behind Daytona International Speedway's 148 races. Martinsville's 144 races have produced 61 different pole winners and 54 different race winners. 9 of the Cup Series Martinsville Speedway winners are entered this weekend. Denny Hamlin right now leading the pack with 5 wins. Brad Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., they each have 2 wins apiece. And then Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, and Ryan Newman, each they've won once there. The first NASCAR Cup Series race at Martinsville Speedway was on September 25th, 1949, and won by NASCAR Hall of Famer Red Byron, driving an Oldsmobile for car owner Raymond Parks. NASCAR Hall of Famer Richard Petty leads the NASCAR Cup Series in wins at Martinsville Speedway with 15 victories, the most of any driver the series has won at a single track. He's also won 15 races in North Wilkesboro. Now, Joe Gibbs Racing, as we mentioned, Denny Hamlin leads the NASCAR Cup Series among active drivers and wins at Martinsville Speedway with 5. This weekend's starting lineup was determined by metric qualifying, and last week's winner, Joey Logano, will start on the pole at Martinsville on Saturday night. And Logano will be joined by series standings leader Denny Hamlin, the Chesterfield native, on the front row. So I threw a lot of the history, I threw a lot at you, digesting it. And Sammy, like I said, when you're talking about history, it doesn't get any bigger than Martinsville. I did not know that they have had 144 races there, 4 behind Daytona. So unless Daytona shuts down, looks like Martinsville will be second for a long time. But overall, just your thoughts about the race coming up. I mean, will we go 8 for 8? Will we have 8 different race winners and 8 different tracks? So first of all, just your overall thoughts about the race. Who's your winner, your dark horse, and all the good stuff there?
Well, Daytona's not shutting down anytime soon. At least I would definitely bet against that. So I think Martinsville will stay in second. But that's still an amazing accomplishment. And as you said, you know me, I love the history stuff. So Martinsville having a race every year in the history of NASCAR, it really is the sport. I tell folks who are unfamiliar that Martinsville's kind of like Wrigley Field or Fenway Park for NASCAR. If you're into history and you're into the origins of sports, it is an absolute must visit. The racing's incredible. Yes, I'm biased because I grew up going to the track, but I love racing at Martinsville. Racing under the lights with fans in the house this Saturday is going to be awesome. I am looking very, very forward to the race this weekend. You rattle off a lot of the folks with wins. Martin Truex Jr. is the Vegas favorite right now, and rightfully so. He's won 2 races in the past 3 years at Martinsville. But I actually do like us to go 8 for 8 in different winners this year. My pick is Brad Keselowski to find victory lane at Martinsville this weekend. He has 10 consecutive top 10 finishes at Martinsville, 5 straight top 5s. He's got a win in that stretch. I think the Deuce makes it back-to-back wins for Team Penske this weekend down in Henry County. Now, as far as a dark horse, I go Alex Bowman. Alex had 2 top 10 finishes at Martinsville last year. He finished 6th in both races there. Hendrick historically runs pretty well at Martinsville. Obviously, his teammate Chase Elliott won the fall race last year. He's had a week off to get things recalibrated, get with his team. I think Alex Bowman could make some noise this weekend at Martinsville.
Yeah, I tell you, this has been a season unlike any other, and it would be neat to see 8 straight winners. But I'm going to go off the grid. I'm going to pick Denny Hamlin. I got to go with the local guy. I got to go with Denny Hamlin. He's had success. I mean, again, 5 wins there. So I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin. He'll be my pick, which would make it 8 for 8. So it'll be pretty cool right then and there. I'm going to ask you a couple more Martinsville questions in a little bit. But first off, NASCAR, they paid tribute to frontline healthcare workers at Silva Health on Tuesday with a parade and a special surprise. And WFXR Sports' David de Guzman takes a closer look at how the pandemic led to a unique partnership between the hospital and the Martinsville Speedway.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to get through this thing.
It was a simple gesture that went a long way. A parade of NASCAR haulers rolling by Sova Health in Martinsville to honor frontline healthcare workers.
And the work that all of you have done is phenomenal. And we just want to say thank you. NASCAR Blue Emu wanted to take this opportunity to give thanks to all of you for what you have done to help us get through this pandemic and come out the other side better.
It's the 2nd straight year Race Week has kicked off with a parade around the hospital, but the event taking on greater meaning this time.
It's like a whole new world, really, that we live in, that we've had to adjust. And, you know, this staff has just been through an enormous amount of uncertainty, as well as just helplessness, times of real helplessness when trying to take care of patients here. And, you know, they gave everything they had.
Martinsville Speedway helping in the efforts to fight COVID-19, first as a testing site and now as a venue for conducting mass vaccination clinics.
You know, with the vaccination efforts that we have underway, it's really gave us a sense of hope as we move into the future.
Hall of Famer Rusty Wallace led the parade in the signature red pace car, and the 7-time Martinsville champion also hopes to lead by example when it comes to getting vaccinated.
I got vaccinated, my wife got vaccinated, it didn't hurt, I didn't feel anything. I got that done. I had so much peace of mind after that happened to me. It just made me feel good. I felt safer.
Now Wallace looks forward to seeing NASCAR racing under the lights at Martinsville with fans. The 30% capacity will include 100 SOVA healthcare workers who receive tickets following Tuesday's parade.
And I'm really excited to see a night race here. So we're going to see a night race on Saturday night, and that is going to be something because you know how exciting it gets there.
The lights at the Speedway becoming the light at the end of the tunnel for many during this pandemic. Local in Martinsville, David de Guzman, WFXR Sports.
Thank you so much, David. So here's the Martinsville Speedway schedule. Tonight gets things rocking and rolling, 8 o'clock with the modifieds, as it'll be the Virginia is for lovers, Racing Lovers 200. Then tomorrow night at 8, the Xfinity Series gets on the track with the Cookout 250. Saturday night, 7:30, the Cup Series gets going with the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500. Now again, Saturday from the Martinsville Speedway, we have the Cup Series, the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500. It's going to be 263 laps around the track. 263 miles and 500 laps around the track. Now each stage 1 is 130 laps, stage 2 130 laps, with the final stage 240 laps. Meanwhile, the playoffs, that bubble is starting to shrink a little bit. Now Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Michael McDowell, and Joey Logano. 7 of the 16 playoff spots gone. Denny Hamlin dropped a spot to 8th. Obviously, if someone wins outside of that bubble, you're going to drop back. Brad Keselowski staying at 9th. Kevin Harvick is in the 10th spot. Chase Elliott remains 11th. Austin Dillon staying at 12th. Kyle Busch staying at 13th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he made a big jump. He went from outside to in. He went from 17th to 14th. Kurt Busch staying 15th. Alex Bowman, he moved from 14th to 16th, right on that cut line. He's 4 points above the cut line. Meanwhile, Chris Buescher, he's dropped from 16th to 17th, 4 points below the cut line. Ryan Preece staying 18th, 18 points below the cut line. So we did have some movement. Obviously, Joey Logano winning, locking up a spot, but then some movement. But obviously, when you look at it, Sammy, probably the biggest jump you had to look at, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he was 17th. He moved into 14th. You're still not comfortable there, but at least right now you have to feel good that you are in the playoff picture. Looking at the movement, a couple of weeks later, just your thoughts about that.
Certainly no comfort for Stenhouse. He would still love to get a W to lock himself into those playoffs. I think one thing that's emerging, obviously the bubble is going to be a talk no matter what, especially when you have 7 different drivers who have already locked themselves in. I think another thing that's emerging right now is how close the playoff points are. Not just on the bubble, but when you talk about the playoff points, drivers who have accumulated those, either the 5 points per wins or 1 point per stage win. Kyle Larson has the most right now with 8, with his 1 race win, 3 stage wins. Through 7 races last year, Logano and Denny Hamlin both already had 11. So they had already separated themselves, and those playoff points play a huge part of who gets to the championship race in Homestead. Denny Hamlin got Phoenix, excuse me, old habits die hard when I still say Homestead. But Denny Hamlin got in that race last year based on points, and in large part based on those points he accumulated in the early part of the season. It is very true that these races right now have implications on who is going to compete for a championship at the end of the year. Just ask Kyle Busch. You go back to 2019, he didn't win a single playoff race. Got into Homestead based on all the playoff points he'd accumulated in the regular season, got to Homestead, won the race, won his 2nd championship. We still have a lot of time left in the regular season, but that is something to keep an eye on to see if someone separates themselves when it comes to playoff points by the time we get to September.
And that's really the big key. It's not necessary. I mean, yes, you want to win. But if you don't win, win some of these stages, win a race, do something, because those points, like you mentioned, it's so big, and it's about where you finish. So if you can finish, consistently in a top 10, win a stage, win a race here or there, you're setting yourself up for an opportunity to get a good seed when you get into the playoffs, because even like you mentioned, you get to the playoffs, if you barely got in, that means you're probably going to have to, obviously you're going to have to win. Once you get into the chase for the cup, the playoffs, if you're, down in that lower end, yeah, you got to win eventually, because that's not going to get it done. So cool stuff.
Not only if you're at the bottom, but even if you're at the top, if it's close like it is right now, and you don't have drivers who have separated themselves and accumulated those points that'll carry over, there's no one who can go in and say, okay, I can. No one goes in and says I can, not give it my all in a round of the playoffs. But in the back of your mind, if you have a lot of points accumulated, you can say, okay, we didn't win, but I can still make it to the next round. And if it's close throughout the field going in, no one can say that.
Who would have thought Kevin Harvick wasn't going to race in Phoenix? Who saw that coming?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I had him locked in. I had him, Denny, I had them all locked in. But that's why you race. And guess what? Back on WFXRTV.com. We have the WFXR Sports Fastlane. It's each and every Thursday, 3 o'clock on WFXRTV.com. Also, if you'd like to see a replay of the show, it will be on WFXRTV.com, as well as previous episodes of WFXRTV.com. So, Sammy, getting back to your home track, it's Martinsville week. It's like a homecoming for you, the first of 2 weekends. Of course, the fall race will be fun because that's in the chase. But give me some of your fondest memories. Actually, give me a memory the first time you ever went to a race at Martinsville.
I don't know if I remember the first time I actually went to Martinsville because I was probably very, very young. 2 memories stick out for me when I think about Martinsville, and it is going there as a kid. Growing up, my dad would take me to the track a ton, especially when I was younger in elementary school and a little bit of middle school. He would come and get me out of school and go to qualifying day. And I vividly remember sitting there and waiting, because I was going to get out of school for the day, but getting to spend time with my dad, going to the track and seeing these names and having my parents explain to me who Dale Earnhardt is and who Richard Petty is and who Bobby Allison is. That had a huge impact on me and a reason that I am a NASCAR fan today. And if you had told me back then that I would get the opportunity to work in the industry and get the opportunity to sit here and talk about NASCAR with you every week, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So that is a very vivid memory as a kid going to the track with my folks. Fast forward to a couple years ago, working in NASCAR, 2015, I had the privilege of working the race that was Jeff Gordon's final victory. I actually have a picture, I don't know if you can make it out, right here that I took of Jeff Gordon after he crossed the finish line and got out and climbed up on his car and raised his hands up. It was such a powerful and emotional moment. You're talking about an icon of the sport that you knew was going out, racing at one of, if not his favorite track, getting a win to advance to the championship race. That was such a cool moment and something I feel very fortunate to be part of. And then a little honorable mention along the same lines, 2018, the race that got snowed out and delayed till Monday. I was also working that race when Clint Boyer won, and man of the people, Clint Boyer went into the stands and had an ice cold beverage with some fans, which was kind of cool to see and be a part of as well. But Martinsville is such a unique experience. It's history. It's great racing. It's a great fan experience. Get your hot dogs if that's your thing. It's such a cool place and somewhere I encourage all fans to go if they haven't checked it out.
You know, you mentioned those 2 memories. The one with Jeff Gordon, I mean, technically you could call that the first night race because it did end in darkness. I mean, it was pitch black. That's when we didn't have the lights at Martinsville yet. You talk about adding lights to Wrigley, it was kind of like adding lights to Martinsville, kind of like that same scenario. And not only that, I remember when you took us down there for the tour, we went to the Hall of Fame in Charlotte. They actually had that car, and the neat thing, the confetti was still on it. You know, you still had that. So they had that car that made it, that's in the Hall, I think it's still in the Hall of Fame down there in Charlotte, or Concord or Charlotte, that combination there. And then also the Clint Boyer, that was a crazy thing. It was my birthday weekend, and it snowed, which we had pictures. And it was like a running rivalry between Martinsville and Richmond. They were they're tweeting out each other's snow pics. And Clint Boyer winning it. And the thing I remember what Clint Boyer said, who's now with Fox broadcasting races, he'll be down there obviously Saturday. He said he wanted to win a race for his kids, you know, as they got older. Because let's face facts, there weren't too many more races to go, he said. But to win a race and get that grandfather clock, you know, and I can't believe we haven't even mentioned a clock yet. We've been talking Martinsville. They haven't mentioned a clock yet, which is probably one of the neatest trophies in sports. But the biggest thing is he wanted to win it for his kids and from his kids, and I thought that was neat.
Very neat. Boyer is such an awesome and jovial person. He's perfect for the TV world. He's doing a great job with Fox. And yeah, I can't believe we went through this whole thing and didn't mention the clock. Got to be, what, top 5 coolest trophy in all sports?
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones, but in racing, people say, hey, I want to win a grandfather clock. I might get with Clay to give me one of them little baby grandfather clocks. I can get one for the office and all that. Well, Sammy Eanes, my man, as usual. This has been fun. It's like a Martinsville special. We might as well call it the Martinsville special. You know, we talked about it. But it's going to be so much fun. And next week, we're going to talk about Martinsville, and then we're going to shine the spotlight. We're going to head east, young man, talking about Richmond. But, again, enjoy the race weekend, and we'll catch up with you next weekend.
You as well. We'll see you next week.
Good deal. All right, Sammy Eanes, our WFXR Sports Racing Insider, and we're dropping the checkered flag on this edition of the WFXR Sports Fastlane. Again, I want to give a shout out to Sammy Eanes for working hard. Thank you so much for driving the car. The pit crew, yes, the WFXR Sports pit crew, our production department, they're second to none. They, like I said, they add the Sunoco fuel. They change the tires. They make sure that they get the dust off the windshields because we were racing in dirt last week. But they make sure we keep the car on the track. And we got another we got another victory. You know, we don't have different winners every week. We win every week with the WFXR Sports Fastlane, so good stuff there. And anyway, I'm Jermaine Ferrell. Hope all of your teams are winners. And, of course, we'll have complete coverage of all the racing on Martinsville. Check it out on WFXR TV and WFXRTV.com. Until then, hope all of your teams are winners. Have a wonderful and blessed day, everybody. And thank you for watching the WFXR Sports Fastlane on WFXRTV.com. And go racing!